Hello everyone and welcome back to Lonk's Takes. A couple of months ago I made a video talking about Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta vs God Goku, and it's probably the most controversial video I've ever made on this channel, to the point where someone made a response video to it going over how they personally saw the scaling, which was the opposite of mine essentially, which is awesome. As you know, at the end of my videos I always like to encourage people to tell why they disagree with my takes so we can further a conversation about this stuff. I love talking about it. I've been thinking about that video, and I've wanted to have another reason to go back and talk about Dragon Ball GT just a little bit more, but for the most part, the actual scaling within GT is pretty straightforward from what I've seen. There's not really like a nuanced Kid Buu versus Buuhan or Jiren versus Broly level debate within it. Besides one, it's the title of the video, and today I hope to give my takes and my answer to the question: who wins, Vegito or Super Saiyan 4 Goku? Besides Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, these two are essentially the two strongest Saiyans to exist before Dragon Ball Super came out, and some comparisons have been made between the two of them throughout their history, so I definitely think there is a precedent to compare the two of them, so let's just jump right in. If you know anything about this topic though, it's probably because of this scan here, and to begin, I'm actually going to completely ignore it for my scaling. A lot of people have their own respective issues with this scan, and I'll get into discussing their legitimacy later, but for now, I want to create a comparison that can function without this controversial scan, so we can then come back to it later and show how it supports or doesn't support what I've said. This means that we'll be mostly looking at anime guide material, as GT is obviously a side story of the anime and not the manga, though if there aren't any contradiction, the manga guides should be fine. So, how strong is Super Saiyan 4 Goku? To begin, we first need to understand how strong base GT Goku is and go from there. After being transformed into a kid, Goku isn't actually any weaker than before, and he just has stamina issues, so he neither scales above or below any scaling of end of Z or post end of GT, like beginning of GT training Goku. So how strong is that Goku at the end of Z and the beginning of GT? A lot of people seem to think he's equal to Kid Buu in base, but this is just not the case. While, yes, Goku is stronger than Oob in base, in both the end of Z and start of GT, there is literally no way to show that Oob actually scales to Kid Buu. Firstly, and most importantly, the Daizenshu makes it very clear that Oob does not know how to use the reincarnated power of Majin Buu, and even then it's unclear if that power is actually equivalent to what Kid Buu had to begin with. By the time GT rolls around, Oob has certainly gotten stronger, but once again, to my knowledge, there's no indication that he actually scales to Kid Buu. Even then, if there was, we know for a fact that no one in the Dragon Ball universe, including Goku, actually knew how strong Kid Buu was. At least from the end of Z Goku, he still thinks there's a possibility he'd lose to Oob before finding out that Oob has no training, meaning that even in Super Saiyan 3, he has not surpassed what he sensed from Buu before. So, at least from fighting against Oob, base G2 Goku does not scale above Kid Buu. But what about the other statement? The one statement that Goku makes that is almost the fundamental basis of all Dragon Ball GT scaling. Goku calls Rildo stronger than Buu, and then essentially beats that version of him in base. The problem with this statement is simply that you really can't prove which Buu Goku is talking about. And regardless of which one he's talking about, it isn't a very good statement. If you think he's talking about Kid Buu, well, he's talking about the energy that he felt from the suppressed Kid Buu he fought, because we know for a fact he doesn't know Kid Buu's full power. If you think he's talking about the actually current alive version of Fat Buu, whose power he does know, then while obviously being less impressive, it's not a new feat for Goku. In the anime continuity of Z, even base Goku could beat Fat Buu by the time he fought Kid Buu, given how he could evenly fight with a perfect copy of Ultimate Gohan and easily beat him as a Super Saiyan. I don't think I have to explain why Ultimate Gohan is over Fat Buu, so let's just keep going. After this point, we get to a bunch of characters essentially just being increasingly levels of power stronger than each other until we reach Baby without really any numbers or multipliers being attributed to it. And at this point, we kind of need to discuss what the actual strength of Super Saiyan 4 is, like as a multiplier. And really, it doesn't exactly have one. In the GT Perfect files, Super Saiyan 4 is just a limit-breaking form that draws the power of the Saiyans to their limits. Obviously, there are limits there, as after Baby got what we could assume to be a 10 times stronger amp after transforming into a Great Ape, Goku went from being casually stronger than Baby to verbatim being weaker than him. The problem with this statement is that this is essentially the exact description that Super Saiyan 3 has, meaning 4 is just a better limit reacher unlocker than Super Saiyan 3. Now, obviously, at some point, Goku does surpass Kid Buu's power, as Baby is stated to be the strongest enemy at some point, and at bare minimum, Super Saiyan 4 Goku, when amped with others people's ki, can beat him. There are 2 other arcs in GT, so surely Goku must get significantly stronger, but, like, does he? Seriously, this is like an open question to anyone who really likes GT. Besides, like, arbitrarily attributing unknown Zenkai boosts, what does Goku do that shows he's any quantifiably stronger than he was in the Baby Saga? Okay, so what about Vegito? How could he possibly compare to these characters that are even stronger than Kid Buu? Well, in the anime, just like for the manga, Vegito is the strongest warrior in the entire Z anime, even while in base, and is just suppressed the entire time against Buuhan. This means that an actual full power base Vegito is already above all of Z, let alone Super Vegito. This means that base Vegito by himself is beating up everyone in GT until Baby shows up, and eventually one of Baby's forms actually surpasses Kid Buu. Now, this may sound like super unreasonable, but like, just look at Super with like Blue Goku seeming to struggle a little bit against Krillin. He's just that suppressed, and Vegito, as we know, has like even better ki control than Goku does, so it's completely reasonable to say that he's capable of doing this. It's now really important to actually bring up the statement that Goku makes, saying that Baby Vegeta is stronger than anything he's ever felt. The relevant things he's felt up to this point are a Super Vegito who's, as we've mentioned before, using less than a 50th of his power, and a Kid Buu who wasn't going all out either. This also makes Baby Vegito's own statement pretty irrelevant as well, as even if he somehow knows Vegito's feats, these are the feats of an insanely suppressed Vegito. So now, after all of that, let's look to the statement. This statement that I brought up at the start of the video. It's generally agreed upon that what the actual written language here is that after the 2 strongest people merge, they become the strongest master in the universe, perhaps even stronger than Super Saiyan 4. Now, in the past, I have incorrectly attributed this to the GT Perfect files. From what I've seen, it's actually from the official manga of the Heroes Legacy anime special, which is pretty much as official as you can get for an already not canon product like GT. Now, people have 2 major complaints with the statement. Number 1, the guide came out before GT was over, and number 2, it's not talking about Vegito as a person, it's a page talking about forms, and they're saying that fusion is just a better multiplier than Super Saiyan 4 is. The problem with issue 1 is that this is a guide for a film that takes place after the end of GT, meaning that whatever it says can just be retrospectively true for everything that came before, as long as it doesn't contradict anything. And if you're this deep in this video, I hope you can at least acknowledge that I've shown that there's a possibility that it doesn't. Even then, if it is talking about Baby Saga Super Saiyan 4, I'll ask again, how much stronger does Super Saiyan 4 Goku get after this? The second point also makes no sense to me, because the guide is not summarizing Goku's forms like a lot of people falsely claim. Looking at the full page, this page is telling the history of Dragon Ball. The 2 sections before are about Goku's sacrifice against Cell and his battle against Kid Buu. On the same page, it refers to Gohan in Super Saiyan 2 as just Super Saiyan 2. Thus, we now have a precedent within this guide that shows that it calls characters while in a form by the name of that form. So now we look to the text of Super Saiyan 4, we know it's not talking about the form, but the person using the form being Goku in 4. The funniest part about this is that either way, this is talking about base Vegito, as it's talking about Vegito at the moment of fusion, not Super Vegito, which it talks about separately. So, who do I think wins? If I haven't made it clear, I think Super Vegito slams almost all of GT by himself, not even mentioning using higher forms like Super Saiyan 2 or 3. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I know this video is probably going to get a lot more hate than my last GT video did, but I hope that I've been very reasonable and laid out why most of GT's statements don't really work, and why the statements in favor of Vegito are just a lot more verbatim, cut, and dry. Still, if you disagree with my takes, let me know how I'm wrong in the comments down below. See ya.